Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to chat with Pierre Barbeau, CEO of Moblico. Moblico is a mobile technology solutions provider that specializes in helping distributors get their arms around business messaging and communication with their customers. Kind of a funny story. I first heard about this company in a marketing group that I facilitate. So I did a little research and found that they are currently working with several of the same distribution clients that I've served over the years. I was a little dumbfounded that I hadn't heard about them before. Over the past few months, I've gotten to know Pierre and the team at Moblico. Every time I speak with him, I come up with more ways to apply this world of mobile messaging. I always enjoy chatting with Pierre, and I hope our conversation gets your creative juices flowing. This episode is brought to you by Connected Peers, an online peer collaboration platform for distribution professionals. Let's face it, most managers don't have the opportunity to speak with their industry peers about common challenges in their departments. Sure, they might see each other at an annual conference, but that hardly provides any real relationship building or continuity. What if there was a forum to solve challenges with those in your same role? Well, now there is. The concept is simple. Purchasing managers meeting with purchasing managers, training managers meeting with training managers, marketing managers meeting with marketing managers. You get the idea. There are 10 unique role-based communities to choose from. These are monthly, facilitated meetings all via Zoom. Ask questions and receive feedback from people who understand the challenges of your position. Isn't it time that you quit going it alone? To learn more and find your peers, visit us at www.connectedpeers.com. Well, Pierre, thank you for coming on Distribution Talk. I appreciate you taking the time to be with me today.
Jason, it's awesome to be here. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well, sir. Well, hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about your background. If you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit about your background and really kind of where mobile technology became a big part of your life.
So I'm originally from Canada, but I moved to Kansas City in my early 20s. So pretty much worked for Sprint, which is now part of T-Mobile, for a little over 10 plus years. And during those years, spent a fair amount of my time. Sprint actually owned an agency. So we were a wholly owned subsidiary of Sprint, performed agency, marketing agency, particularly technology-oriented marketing technologies to both Sprint, but a lot of outside customers as well. And eventually migrated to a business development role within Sprint. And that's where the sort of technology communication thing really took off for me, at least in my career. And among other things, ended up focusing on visual communication. So the addition of cameras in phones, the camera phone, and specifically kind of drove the development of a product that was named the Sprint Picture Mail. It was the first picture sharing camera phone based service in the US. And basically saw that product from inception through general management and left the company after overseeing the development of that product and its launch to market. I think when I left Sprint, we had close to 7 million subscribers using that service. And that's really where I learned, how to build apps for phones and back-end systems, right, that interact with those applications. So that's essentially my background.
That is your history with mobile technology. But then after Sprint, you decided to form Moblico and...
Yes. Exit Sprint, formed Moblico, partnered with initially a couple of guys actually who also had in their own right experienced a lot of innovation in the mobile industry, particularly Jim Barnes, who's our CTO and co-founder. Jim helped build the first mobile advertising network in the US. It ultimately sold to Nokia back in the day. So, between the two of us, we started to ideate what kind of platform we think businesses might need to take advantage of this phenomenon of what was to become smartphones, right? think when we let Sprint, to give you a sense of time, maybe 10 to 20% of the US market had a smartphone at the time. People were still paying per message for their data plans, in addition to their data plans. So we were very early in the process, and we experimented to look at different markets, different opportunities, and we explored a few of those. But ultimately, it's the distribution industry where we really found our niche, if you wish. And we were fortunate enough to meet a customer in that industry, CFM distributors.
Very familiar with them. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So Lauren Roberts was our first distribution industry wholesale customer, and she approached us initially with a spreadsheet that she had developed and had put in the hands of technicians to help them in the field make calculations and decisions about, the right parts to order to fix HVAC equipment. And she was hoping we could take that experience and put it in a more usable fashion, put it in an application that could live on a phone as opposed to guys running around with laptops, which made a total sense. So we ventured and started working on that with her. And that's when we discovered there was another problem that really had been the focus, but suddenly became pretty important. And I remember asking Lauren at the time, I said, who's going to use the spreadsheet? And the answer was, I really don't know. And we were like, why is that? And the answer is because, at least in the day, a lot of contractors guarded the communication between them and the distributor. So anything that Lauren wanted to communicate to a technician would typically go through a team within the contractor space to get to their eyes and ears. So one of the things we did immediately with the app was capture that information, right? So when technicians download the app, we got their information, phone number, name, got their opt-in, preferences for email, etc. So that became a list building exercise in a lot of ways, right? And that was sort of the beginning of the communication side of the solution. And we put in place tools that allowed Lauren to then reach out and connect with technicians in a much simpler way that she had, at least in the past. And to this day, her team, not made Lauren's, basically moved up to president of CFM. At the time, she was over marketing, but she and her team continue that communication. They sent out a weekly, I think they call it Tech Tuesday or something like that. But they continue to do this. And they've done it since 2011, just to give you a sense of time. It's over 10 years.
So when you built this app for Lauren, and really is the purpose was to create better communication between that tech in the field and CFM in this case, and this distributor. What was the adoption like from the contractor community? I mean, I think that's the question that I would have is, you build the app and they will come. I mean, is it, or is it something that, that the contractors said, wow, this is something revolutionary, or it's like, oh, this is kind of neat?
Well, I mean, I don't know if the contractor or the technicians view this as revolutionary or evolutionary, but what I will tell you though is it's of value to them if it solves problems, right? If it makes their job easier, then there's an attraction, right? There's a purpose or for the application or any other service, including messaging services. So can you just build it, leave it there and hope they come? It's probably not that simple. You really do need to have a game plan on how you're going to get this tool out there and get people to discover it, get people to adopt it, and get people to use it. The good news is, now almost 12 years in this game, we've seen a lot of people succeed at that process and others not so much. So we've learned from those experiences and we pass a lot of that know-how down to our new customers. And we work with existing customers as well to continually try to improve on the adoption and the use of the tools that they have at their disposal, and also help them evolve those tools, because there's a lot of things you can do over time to make those tools not just beneficial to the customer, but for internal operations as well.
Well, I think you kind of alluded to really almost information gathering, a lot of list gathering and contact information from these contractors. It was made much easier through this mobile app and through this form of communication. Is that something that you saw as a huge benefit?
Yeah, and that's part of it. I think the messaging programs as well lend themselves to establishing a line of, not just a line of communication, also collecting information on customers. And ultimately, the purpose is really to better serve them, right? So, anything that you do in mobile communication or marketing is ultimately trying to streamline processes, try to be more accessible when you're needed, right? And mobile as a channel inherently is very responsive if you compare to, something like email, right? Which I understand a lot of emails are still read on mobile phones, but email itself, anybody who's used it day to day in your work or for marketing purposes, open rates can be fairly low. They're certainly very slow. People take hours, if not days, to respond. Messaging is more instant. Open rates are in the 90% range. So for certain types of communications that you need to deliver, whether through a mobile app push communication or a text-based message, there are certain types of information that lend themselves well to that channel when it needs to get there quickly, and you want to make sure everybody gets the word that you're trying to communicate.
Yeah. I mean, so with CFM and others, obviously in that HVAC space and actually tons of different vertical markets that you've worked in. Yeah. The app is just kind of one opportunity. That's one thing that you all do, but you kind of alluded there to that business messaging. So could you give me an example of maybe something that a distributor used this mobile messaging for? What's been kind of the bigger application of that?
Yeah, maybe Jason, I could kind of give you a little bit of a scope of services, if that's what you like, and then maybe look at some use cases. So we call business messaging is, in essence, is two-way conversational type messaging. There's multiple channels that can be involved in that process, including text-based texting as one option. So one of the use cases there is converting existing landline or toll-free numbers and enabling those for text-based communication. So, and I'll get back to that in a moment. Another product is what we call targeted broadcast, 1 to many, right? Again, the channels that you use to accomplish that can also vary depending on your audience and what kind of tools you're going to put out there. We also do things like mobile payment. So a lot of customers or distributors will use the mobile channels to communicate financial, accounting-based communications and collections and things like that with their customers. We also do digital direct, we call it. And that's about, reaching certain audiences based on where they are, where they've been, that sort of thing. Those technologies are challenged a little bit by some of the device manufacturers are really changing their policies in terms of what you can do and can't do in that regard.
That Apple policy, where Apple was one of those who really attempting to do more privacy so that you couldn't, slam messages at them without opting in. So
correct. And then of course there's the, loyalty and reward and incentive programs. So we do a lot of that as well as part of our platform. And then custom built applications. We have several distributors that have gone that direction as well. So back to, the business messaging, there's a lot of use cases associated with that. And again, it's really about ease of use, making it easier to communicate both from internal and external purposes. So you're talking about, instead of texting your personal phone, I'm going to text a business line. So to me, it's the equivalent of telling your employees to use their personal email at work as opposed to emailing your business email. And that makes it easier for the team to collaborate. And it also, if you would rather text and call, the younger audiences would prefer a lot easier on them. Take pictures of handwritten orders, communicating problems, right? With pictures as well. Sending notifications to customers that a product is ready for pickup. Maybe you're on your way to deliver. So there's several use cases of things that you might do today in a more manual fashion or using phone or using email that you can now apply to a mobile channel, and it's going to be easier, faster.
So jumping on that inbound messaging, as you're saying, currently many companies are receiving these inbound text messages for that, but they are going to private phones. They're not going to that central collection point. I think that's what you were kind of saying. And that makes to the point that, again, you're asking your employees to utilize their own personal phones on this.
And Jason, sometimes they're company issued phones. For the most part, they're personal, but yeah.
But then also, what happens to that data? I mean, it's captured in that if it's a personal phone. Now, if it's a company owned phone, you have access to it, but.
Right. It's still not very convenient, right? Whether it's a personal or if it's a phone, the data is locked in the phone. So it's not something that you can really leverage. So by using a platform, the other information is going to be in a central place. Team can leverage that information. You can report on it. You can help manage your effectiveness as a team. And what's interesting is even team members who are used to using their phone in the workplace, customers are messaging them directly on their phone. A lot of them welcome this kind of technology because it allows them the flexibility to turn it off when they need to. So for example, if you're at home, dinner with your family, you're out on vacation, people are placing orders on your phone. That's not as convenient as being able to let someone in the office handle it for you, right? So there are a lot of benefits and use cases around technology like that. And productivity is a big part of it, saving time. And again, just making the process, I call them chains of pain, right? These are a lot of things you do in your day-to-day job that if you could just make it a little bit easier and you start to add that up in the aggregate, it becomes significant.
Now, and then you touched on the outbound messaging, the notifications. And what I'm kind of envisioning is, let's say I'm at Panera Bread, I placed my mobile order for my food, and I get this message, hey, your lunch order is ready for pickup. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. So and that's a good point, by the way. A lot of the use cases that you applied in a B2B world inherently came from a B2C world, right? So as a consumer, we've all sort of grown accustomed to certain service levels and activities with our phones and interaction with retail. And then we show up in the B2B world and you're like, well, why can't I do that? Right? So that's the problem I think we're solving in a lot of ways is we're helping wholesale distributors sort of catch up with leapfrog from where they are to that position where now they can deliver on those expectations. So yeah, notifications can come in different forms. They can come for different reasons. And those can be manual. They could be automated. That's another area we're focusing on as well. It's the automation of those communications. And again, in the spirit, try to make things easier and streamlined for all involved.
Yeah, I'm just kind of envisioning, again, from my background in distribution growing up and thinking about things like will calls. It'd be fantastic, once a will call is ready for pickup, if that automated message would go to that customer saying, hey, it's ready for pickup. And again, similar to when I place a lunch order or something like that. For me, at least, I think that could be a tremendous time saver. And, none of us like to have orders lingering in that will call area for too terribly long. We'd like to be able to notify people. But if I remember right, and this is going back a little ways, you and I spoke about like an integration with, was it locker technology, if I remember right, or a locker program?
Yeah, there's definitely several systems that you can connect mobile platforms like ours, ERP, e-commerce, right? There's several options, but the lockers is another one. That's sort of an up and coming solution, I guess, that distributors are putting in place to enable the pickup of orders either after hours or creating access to the products you're picking up in such a way you don't have to wait in line. So we partner with a group called Apex that provides lockers to wholesale distributors. And the interesting use case there is Apex already has their own notification engine. But in the cases where we share customers, our customers that we share would prefer that those communications come through the same numbers, through the same inbox that they already have in place with us. And so we completed those integrations, and there's several clients that are actually using that solution as we speak. And it reminds me of a quick story when back in the day when I was at Sprint, as the camera phone person, right, I had an inbox for all the picture messaging activity that you would do. Down the hall from me was a person whose business was the email service. They also had an inbox on the phone. And there was yet another person down the hall that did mostly SMS to texting kind of stuff. And they also had an inbox. So if you bought a phone from Sprint back in 2002, 3, 4, it's likely it had 3 inboxes on the phone. So you can imagine one of the top requests from customers ultimately was, why are there 3 inboxes on my phone? So in a way, we're trying to avoid the sort of technology soup situation here where distributors might try to implement different technologies with different methods and try to avoid ending up with a situation where you have just too many systems to monitor and manage all at the same time. So that's why we're doing these sorts of integrations ahead of time to try to anticipate the need and provide a streamlined solution out of the box.
So kind of jumping forward to another service that you mentioned was the targeted broadcast out there. So give me an example of how a distributor has used this in the past or what they've used that type of communication for.
Yeah. So targeted broadcast is the one-to-many, right? Type communication. So I would say the first thing that comes to mind when you think about that is marketing, right? So sending marketing type messages, which is definitely an opportunity. And when we say targeted, it's because our marketing system has some pretty elaborate tools for our customers to really get, the right message to the right person at the right time. But that said, use cases vary from marketing oriented messages, but it also involves a lot of other customer service oriented type messages. Give you an example. Maybe you're trying to promote an event at one or all of the locations. Maybe you are trying to complete surveys. Maybe there's a lot of different use cases. Maybe you have an early store closing because of the weather. Those are all examples. And you can automate some of that message as well. So there are a lot of cool things you can do. Again, with the whole emphasis on keeping it simple, making it easy for the wholesale distributors to use.
Pierre, the first place I kind of ran across you was a discussion with my marketing group here, the one I facilitate, talking about a new store opening. And this is where systems like yours and different ways announcing that to the public came up. And so thinking about your targeted broadcast, I think that this is a tremendous use case, for a new store opening or some sort of change in the landscape there.
Yeah. So in the instance of a store opening, as an example, Jason, you could combine the use of targeted broadcast in what we call digital direct. So digital direct is a little different, right? So targeted broadcast, I'm literally reaching out specifically to individuals that I know and I have the authority to do, right?
You already have them in your database. They're existing customers, maybe within a reasonable geography of this new location opening.
Yeah, I have the authority to, they're opt-in at some point somewhere. In the case of digital direct, it's a little higher level than that. You're really, at that point, you're reaching out to people that would be more anonymous at this point, right? And you're doing this through third parties. So bottom line is maybe I'm going to place an ad in a app that you use on your phone frequently. It's called the weather, a weather-based application. As you're looking at the weather, you might see one of my advertisements in the application about the new location that will open in your area. And so what we call digital direct is, again, you're reaching out, you're trying to do an outreach to potential contacts that you don't have an existing relationship with.
Isn't this also referred to as like targeted marketing or geo-targeting and things like, there's a lot of different names I've heard around this.
Yeah, geo-targeting, geofencing are names that are often used to describe what we're talking about here. Keep in mind too, that if you do have your own app in the marketplace, you can geo-target those people, right? And that you can do direct because you know who the users are and you have their opt-in express instead to communicate with them. So you can do geofencing in both people you know and people you don't know.
Gotcha. Now, again, going down this trail a little bit, because, as you know, I'm a little more fascinated with this one. It's creepy as heck. I get it. All of a sudden, an ad shows up on your phone. I don't know these people. You are a recipient of that kind of marketing, I would assume.
Well, so just to set the expectation, when you say you receive an ad on your phone, it's not like a broadcast message, right? So the messages you see are inherently part of the experience you're already having with whatever app you're using. So as an example, again, if you have a weather app or you have a sports app on your phone and you're reading an article, you might see some banners, right? So that's the type of real estate that you would have an opportunity to occupy, right? And show your brand, your message it's not like your phone's going to wake up and pop up something out of the blue because you don't have that reach. You don't have the authority to do that. So digital direct is more passive, if you wish, that way, but it's very targeted. And, I know you said, you used the word creepy, but bottom line is this is how ads are sold. And you're experiencing this every day. You take your phone out, go to Google, browse the web, do whatever. The ads you see, Jason, are specifically targeted to you. And not you personally, but you as a profile, right? So the ad networks know something about you because you've revealed something along the way or you gave permission along the way. But those ads are not there by accident, right? Somebody is paying for that real estate and really it's for you. And it's not, here's the other thing, it's not 100% accurate. So when advertisers face ad campaigns, you're not going to get 100% accuracy, nowhere near. So there's a lot of hit and miss in that exercise. But again, it's a numbers game. If you're able to reach enough of your target audience, you can still get your message across, still effective.
And with this technology and with this type of marketing that you all can facilitate and help with, you can literally take this down to a small footprint, i.e. a building or something like that. It can be that specific. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. So when you create your geofences, you can polygon, you can create radiuses. There's different options on how you go about doing this. But bottom line is you can define the geography you want to target, and you can also target the individuals that you're trying to find within the target. Now, the smaller the target, the more accurate you're trying to get, the more breakage you'll get, right? So the harder it is to find the needle in the haystack, if that makes sense.
So tell me about breakage. You used that term before. Tell me about, what does that mean?
Well, you're going to spend a certain amount of budget trying to target a certain audience. And if you sort of over target, you're going to make it extremely difficult. You have to have a certain span of reach, I guess. And here's the good news. We handle all that for our clients, so it's not like something they have to go figure out. But I'm just sharing with you some of the challenges with geofencing, right? So, the other thing too is what do you expect out of your campaign, right? So is it a branding exercise? Are you going to lead generation, et cetera, would also dictate how to best approach your targeting exercise.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've seen this again, going back to our scenario about new store opening. I have heard of people geo-targeting the nearest and dearest competitor, literally putting the fence around that competitive store. And really, hopefully anybody entering that space over however long your campaign is, they are going to be getting those ads through their apps.
Yeah, it's funny. When I drive by a Walgreens, I get an ad for CVS, right? I have both apps on my phone.
Yeah. No. And so, no, again, and this is where maybe somebody of my vintage might find that to be a little invasive or creepy, but people, there's a couple generations here that are okay with it. They seem to be more open.
Well, generally speaking, when you get involved in marketing channels, individuals will be willing to allow you to market to them if there's something in it for them. All right. That's a good rule of thumb right there. So again, if you're trying to push a message on someone that's not relevant to that individual, it's probably not good use of your time and certainly not of theirs. Right. However, if you do a good job of delivering a message to someone in a target, when we say targeted, that's what we really mean, right? Is what you're able to communicate via a message. If I buy from a particular location, and then you're messaging me about what's going on in another location of yours that's 4 states over, that's not relevant to me, right? I'm going to turn that off. I don't want to hear those messages. So that's a good example. So the ability to message the right person, the right time is key for that message to be valuable to both parties, the one sending and the one receiving.
So a little bit of a segue here, but thinking about business messaging and mobile technology, did this really take a big boom during a pandemic? I mean, I could just imagine that, especially messaging to individuals, telling them that their order's ready for pickup or things like that. When we had these no contact rules and things, I can imagine this was a big upheaval. Everybody was trying to get into the messaging business at that point.
Well, I can say that leading up to the lockdown and the contactless pickup and delivery, there were already a lot of distributors who were gearing up and had deployed these types of technologies. So I think they were in a very good position to execute, right? We did see at the beginning of the pandemic a bit of a acceleration among some who had been on the fence. Should I do this or not? And then I'd say during the pandemic, a lot of companies came to the realization, maybe I should be, or maybe had not even considered. But the demand is still very strong, even now that we're kind of coming out of that. I'd say demand is as strong as ever in terms of, I think, people realizing this is what they need to be doing to remain competitive. They're competing with some of the large boxes. And we're a family-owned business, and we focus on independent distributors. And that's our mission. We want to help them compete with the large entities and give them the tools, give them the technology they need to, like as I said before, leapfrog, right, from their current position and put them in a position where they can maintain those lines of engagement with their customers and their employees, by the way. That's something we really haven't talked about much, but employees are as likely to use this technology as the customer base will. So that really helps, again, everybody involved save time and money and be more effective in their day-to-day operations.
I'm glad you mentioned employees, because that's something that actually I was talking with a friend about this, and his eyes lit up. I thought his eyes would light up about engaging customers and all that stuff. His eyes lit up with the ability to one message to his employee base, not having to do that was actually something that kind of lit his fire. So again, you never know who's going to jump on what, but like something that's a great use case.
Yeah, there are use cases for messaging, but there's also use cases in the app as well. So a lot of distributors are using mobile apps to put, for lack of a better term, I'll call it intranet, but put in app all feature functions, access to tools, information, resources that employees need while they're at work or offsite or somewhere in between, right? So with the mobile applications, you can create a host of resources, I guess, that employees have access to. And of course, you can communicate with them and they can communicate with you as well. So messaging is one way, but the app is a really fantastic way as well.
Yeah. HR functions would be something that would be interested, in there. And
absolutely. And, a lot of these apps have sort of real estate within the application for the presence of banners and promotional items. I use the analogy sometimes of the break room, right? Stuff you would put on that court board, why not put that in an app? Why not message to people who have the app, the employees, and let them know that one of their peers got that promotion they were hoping for? Or maybe you have, again, an event or maybe some forms that they need to fill out, right? Whatever it may be. It's the digitization of, right? A lot of these things that you've done historically with pen, paper, and Scotch tape.
No, it's very interesting. And one last thing, if I could, just kind of came to mind, going back to, kind of the marketing effort and the things. Have you seen the manufacturers to these wholesalers, to the distributors, have you seen them be more willing to support this and financially? I'm thinking like co-op advertising dollars, things like that, more willing to look at these digital means of, spending their money from a marketing standpoint than, the traditional things.
Yes. So when you think of deploying these tools, right, that's initially your first motive. Hey, I'm going to create channels for communication and marketing and so forth. But in essence, what you've also done when you do it successfully is you created channels for monetization. And what that means is you can and you should reach out to manufacturers and see if they want to participate in these new communication channels you put in place. And a lot of them will want to take advantage of those under your direction, right? Because you control what's going to happen and how much of it and so forth. But there's definitely value there. And there's a number of ways that you can monetize. We have a lot of tools in our arsenal to help you do that, to help our distributors do that. And we also have a team of people who have the knowledge and can really walk a wholesale distributor through how to do it. And of course, we have a lot of clients who've done it successfully, and they're always willing to share their experiences, and we provide access in a variety of ways to those distributors who, again, are more than happy to help others. Again, all these independent distributors are kind of all, fight together, and I think they're wanting to help each other out, as are we.
Fantastic. Pierre, how can someone get a hold of you? How do we find Moblico?
Probably the best thing to do would be to start with our website. It's moblico.com, moblico.com. And if you venture to our site, a couple of things to look for. Of course, we've got a contact us page there, so easy to fill out. We also have a demo request page. So if you want to try the technology, you can go there for that with that in mind. We also have a couple of our own podcasts. Jason, not to take anything away from you.
Well, that's how I found out about you. I listened to the one with Lauren. I said, I got to find this guy. I got to figure out who these guys are. So,
well, we're thrilled that you did, and we've enjoyed our collaboration as well. So the podcasts are very specific, right, to how they're using mobile and why and so on. So there's maybe close to half a dozen podcasts there right now. And I would recommend that. Just go to our website, check it out, and let us know if we can help. And I think, Jason, there might be a link on your site.
I'll have a link in the show notes of this, but I also have a link on my website to you all's.
Okay.
And I was kind of embarrassed that I didn't know about you previous to earlier, when I ran across Lauren's podcast, I thought, oh my gosh, why don't I know about these guys? But glad I found you. And thank you so much for taking the time to really kind of give us an overview and an explanation of this world. I know it's a little bit daunting and confusing to people, but it's actually a little simpler than they think. So,
well, our whole mission is to sort of demystify this whole technology, and we do try to make it as easy as possible for our customers. They take on a lot of things we discussed today, or things that we do that, again, our customers would not have to deal with directly. So we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much for having me, and we really appreciate you and your audience.
All right. Take care, my friend. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.